Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abi.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
And fourth time is a charm. That's right. We're starting this off fourth time, kids.
Yeah. The first 3 times were your fault.
Welcome to The Connected Life. Wait, what? No.
I'm kidding.
Shared responsibility now out of both of you.
Fair
As
enough.
if this is all on me. Yes,
Fair
am I a
enough.
little bit in a food coma? Yeah, but I'm not the only one here.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
We're all fading slowly.
We're doing another episode of Money.
Joe, we should have done like star
money.
jumps or something.
Star jumps?
Star jumps.
Yeah.
What is that?
Jumping jacks
Oh.
before we got
Oh,
going.
That's what-
jumping jacks.
is that what
what
the
the
Brits
Brits
say?
call?
Yeah, star jumps.
We don't care what the Brits have to
Star
say.
jumps.
No,
They
we
try
do
to tax
care.
us without representation.
They tried to tax us without
How did that end
Oh
for
my
them?
gosh.
Not good.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, in my time in Reading, I was here for 9 years. One of Abby's favorite things to do was reenact the Civil War, where the Americans threw the British tea into the sea with me
Reenact
on the
it,
losing
just-
side.
No, what does reenact even mean? I'd be like, we're throwing the tea over. Here you go. Like, it wasn't like I stabbed or shot you. I didn't. I mean, it was brutal.
That's how it
Listen, I
felt.
think it was a brutal scenario.
It's a
All
story
wars.
that makes no sense to anyone listening. But speaking of taxation without representation, it's another episode on money we're talking about here.
That was a nice segue.
Yeah, look at that. It worked in
Nice.
there.
That was
Hey.
smooth. That was smooth.
Hey,
Yeah,
the-
our last episode.
yeah, you want to talk about it?
I will.
Okay.
We jumped into how money is really like an emotional relationship. There's the practical skills that you need to know what to do with finances.
Yeah.
And that's important to learn. And then there's the emotional issues with finances. And what I found is that the more you deal with your emotional issues, the easier it is to learn the practical skills.
Truth.
Like the practical skills are not overly hard and complicated, but I spent years avoiding them at all costs.
True.
Because I didn't want to look. I didn't think I could learn. I didn't think I could be good at it. I didn't think I could sort it out. And so I just avoid. And it's very easy for a lot of people to put their head in the sand, for a lot of people to not budget, not look at their finances, not have conversations about it.
Yeah. And speaking of putting your head in the sand over money, we've got Ruth here today to talk more about that specifically.
Nice segue.
Yeah. Great segue back into that as well, because that's something that you did, heavy avoidance, which is something that I think most of us
Can
like.
relate
It's
to.
very relatable to go into avoidance on stuff.
Or hypervigilance.
Or
Some people
hypervigilance.
are checking
so
every
deep control
3
on the
minutes.
other side, right?
I have a friend who checks their finances every like hour and then has control emotions up and down based
So
on.
interesting.
Yeah,
Wow.
so you can hyperfixate or you can avoid.
Say their name. Go ahead. Publicly shame them. They'll stop
Name
it.
and shame.
Yeah, there you go. But I want to get into it because I think that there's something very fascinating about your journey, because you were so disempowered. So you went on your own personal journey of that emotional thing. And specifically, you took a powerful step. You ended up jumping into a course. You want to tell us a little bit about that? Because I just think it's fascinating.
Your journey of realizing you had avoidance and then what you did.
Yes. So if you listened to the episode before, you would have heard that Abby had been telling me for a good old while, Ruth, I think your issue is not actually finances. I think it's to do with the emotions underneath it. And if you would maybe take a look at that, maybe your relationship with finances would change. And I was like, nah. I think I just need to earn more money. Is
Like
really
if I get the job in my head that I
Yes.
can have
Yes.
and I can feel in control of my money, I'll finally feel safe, Abby.
Yeah.
That's really
Duh.
the truth.
Which is the thing I've been telling myself my whole life as a kid, after my parents got divorced. Once I get this career, once I make it through this education, then I'll get to feel
I'll be
safe.
set.
I'll be set. I'll be safe. None of this emotional stuff. Please, come on. I just need a good job.
Yeah.
And part of that for me was connected to moving back to the UK, away from the States, and pursuing a career change. And I started making
Which
this.
I'm just going to point this out.
Yes.
Because I think it's helpful. Logic is not a part of emotional decisions about finances. So like there were opportunities where you could have made as much money in the US as the UK. But there was an emotional belief that going back to the UK is where financial safety would be for you.
Yeah.
And I think I'm glad that you have followed your own life path. It's been important for you. But the idea is that our emotions can blind us to certain opportunities because we don't even see them as options.
That's why they're stupid and we need to get rid of them.
We have such a fixed narrative of this is what's going to make me safe.
Yeah.
This is what I need to do.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking when you were leaving, if your actual goal is safety, you could make a lot of money on this pathway that you could do from the US. Like you could make maybe as much or more than what you're doing, going to do in the UK. And that's when I realized it wasn't actually about the dollar amount. It was about the pathway that you had also.
Right. To get to safety.
Yeah.
Quotation marks.
Yeah.
So I moved back to the UK and I started pursuing this career change, and I realized I'm not feeling that magical feeling of safety, like a lot of those visceral feelings of feeling alone, feeling incapable, feeling like I'm not big enough to take on the thing that's in front of me came with me.
Well, and I'd like to say this. A lot of people hit disappointment when they finally get the thing they've been wanting.
Totally.
Because
they didn't resolve the emotional issue.
It
doesn't fulfill it and solve it.
Yeah. We have a friend who became a millionaire pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And was so depressed and had so much anxiety and so much self-hatred. It solved nothing. But then he felt overwhelming. Like, what's the point? Because the thing he thought would fix it didn't fix it. So now what? How can he find safety?
Right.
So you get to the place where you're like, I'm finally in what my dream has been for the last 10 years.
Yes. Still feeling unsafe, still not feeling satisfied. And also, by the way, this dream that I've had for 10 years, if it's connected to this feeling of striving to feel safe around finances, actually takes away part of the enjoyment and of the experience of the dream.
Totally.
And I would say after going on this journey with finances, I enjoy what I'm doing so much more because it's purely about the enjoyment of doing it and not about trying to find a place of safety and make sure I'm earning enough money.
That's good.
So good.
So I get to the UK, I realize my safety issues have not resolved themselves. They have come with me.
Shocker.
Shocker. I also realize, we talked about this a little bit in the episode before. Oftentimes our relationship with money is a reaction to the spaces that we grew up with and our parents' relationships with money. And one of mine was kind of, I will never be the same as my mom.
Right.
If she's passive and she quits and she goes into defeat, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to keep pushing and I'm going to keep working. But realizing actually internally we're having exactly the same experience around money. We both feel poor. We both feel alone.
Yeah.
And so in a way, I've kind of just recreated
all the pressure on yourself.
Yeah, both put all the pressure on ourselves. I've ended up recreating the thing that I wanted to push away from in the beginning. I've actually brought my intolerable emotion with me and started thinking, okay, if I ever want to actually change my relationship with money, which, you know me, like I've been able to change my relationship with a lot of different things in my life.
Dramatic change in so many areas.
Felt so much freedom. And so like, I think about how self-conscious I used to be and I feel exhausted at the thought of it. And I was like, I just so want to get to that place with money where it feels exhausting to worry to the extent that I have to be worrying about it now. Like, I just want to get to that space where I feel that spaciousness and that freedom, and money can be a tool that is for my benefit rather than something that dictates my safety or dictates my value. So I enrolled in a course that was kind of teaching you side by side practicals around money and looking at your emotions and
Your emotional trauma.
around money, the belief systems that you've constructed, and did a little deep dive on myself.
What did you find?
What was under the surface?
Well, first of all, I found that I had a lot of shame.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Did it feel like everyone else knows how to do money but me? Everyone else
That's
understands this?
That's
Totally.
a common theme for so many people.
Oh, I felt that way.
Totally.
Yeah.
And even something that you said earlier, I consider myself to be quite a smart person.
You are.
And I was like, why can I not figure this out?
Totally.
Why can I not learn this?
Yes.
Like, this is basic. You know,
Yes.
this is basic budgeting. This is basic maths. Like,
So you felt stupid,
yeah,
but you're actually very smart. It's just that you had an emotional block.
totally.
Mm-hmm.
But then there was so much shame around that. Like, shouldn't I be able to figure this out? Shouldn't I have learned this by now? Shouldn't I?
Yeah, and which I think that's a universal emotion for a lot of people. It pops up in different areas, but it's like, oh, when there's an emotional block, it's easy to go, oh, I must just be stupid. I'm not good at something versus like, nah, actually, I'm probably not stupid. There's probably something underneath that I need to resolve, and then I'll feel capable in this.
It's actually very true. Really hard to do practically because you feel so dumb.
Yeah.
I felt that way too. So
Totally.
that makes sense.
Totally. And I think, you know, like we talked about last time, one of the main features of those emotions that we find really intolerable or that cause trauma is that we feel alone in them. And one thing that shame does is keep us alone. Like on a really practical example, I would always think about like, oh, do you know what? I should like go to a financial advisor and I should have them like help me set up my finances in a way that makes sense and make sure I'm getting the most out of interest and savings and yada, yada, yada. I'd have that thought and then instantly I'd feel the shame of like, there's no way I could do that.
Interesting.
Because I'd feel so much shame sat in that room opposite that person.
Yes.
Being like,
Being
feeling like,
exposed.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what
I'm a
doing.
dum-dum who doesn't know how to do this.
Yes.
Why have I not started 20 years ago?
Yes.
I'm behind the curve.
Yeah.
And realizing how much that shame, that belief that I'm behind, that belief that I'm the only one actually keeps us stuck in survival mechanisms and surviving with money in a way that we might even logically be looking at it and going, this isn't productive.
Right.
But the thought of facing the shame, exposing it, bringing someone in can feel so overwhelming that it keeps you trapped and stuck.
Yes. That's a huge point. I'm just
Highlighting.
Highlighting it.
Underline, exclamation
because
point.
I think that most of the reason we don't become is because of shame or fear. I have a friend who, Brian's been on the podcast before, and he runs the Adventure Challenge, and it blew up really quickly as a business. And something that I loved that he would do is so we'd be in meetings with all of these businessmen had been in business for years and years, and they'd be using whatever terms are normal and common. And he'd be like, I'm so sorry, I need to interrupt you. Pretend that I'm dumb and explain this to me, or pretend that I don't pretend that I'm your kid and explain this to me. And he chose at the beginning of the business instead of, and I've seen this happen before where people have shame. So they just nod their head and go along with it and then have no idea what the decision was or why the decision was made and if it was the right decision or not. But he made the choice. I'm not going to decide that I should have shame about where I'm at.
Wow.
I'm just going to own it and I'm going to disrupt things to make sure that I get good information. And I felt like that was really inspiring to me to witness, because I do think there's this thing that shame always says, which is everyone else understands this but you.
Right.
Yeah.
Because most of the time when Brian would do that, I'd be like, oh yeah, thank God I didn't know what that meant either. Sometimes I understood what the things were. And then sometimes I didn't, but I never felt annoyed by him doing it. I always felt like that's courageous. And I think that money is a skill. And you can actually study it and you can grow it. And if you aren't studying and growing it, there's probably emotional avoidance. It's not that you're dumb.
Totally.
Yeah.
And what I love about what you're sharing about your friend there is with any area of our lives, we need help.
Yes.
Like we need, like with my relationships, sometimes I need help. With my education, sometimes I need help.
Yes.
Like there's no part of life that we were meant to live completely on our own and in isolation. And I think for me, finances had become that. Around my shame. Like, and
I have
around,
to do this all on my own.
My past experience. Like I have to be self-sufficient. I have to be able to figure this out completely on my own. And that's just not even realistic.
Totally.
No.
And not healthy.
Yeah.
And
I know a couple that they were drowning financially. And so they met with some of their couple friends and were like, we need help. What are things that we can do? They picked people that were not in the same category as them to be like, what can we do? That's actually how me and Justin got together as a couple, is because we were just friends, but I knew he ran his finances better than me. And I was looking at, I need to get my finances under control. I need help. I need some practical skills and tools, and I need some mindset. I knew that it was both mindset and practical back then. And so I asked him to help me, because I was like, pick somebody that you want your finances to look like theirs. Pick somebody that there's peace or whatever, and engage them on that journey.
One of the things that you're talking about is like earned versus learned. So people can spend years earning, like working overtime to earn their knowledge through their own, like, which is great. I mean, like hard work, great. Glad you earned that knowledge on your own. Or you can learn knowledge. I don't know if this is like this description that I'm giving is real to any other definitions out in the world, but learn knowledge to me is like, oh, I can just ask you and you're going to teach me and I'm going to learn it. So something that costs somebody 15 years, I might learn in 6 months or a month or whatever. And to me, people feel a lot of shame about learned versus earned rather than being like, oh, I mean, it's great if you have the tenacity to earn it. But man, you can save so much time going through the learn process of like, I'm just going to ask questions and have so much more momentum on your life. And I don't think that people think about what it's really costing them to sit in that earned space, that self-sufficient, I'm doing this alone. It's like the shame is costing you years of opportunity where you could like expedite everything based on someone who already paid the price.
Yeah. And it's reinforcing those painful emotions.
Yeah. Like I'm alone in money.
I'm alone in money because I am forcing myself to be alone in money at this point.
Yeah.
Maybe I was as a kid realistically, but now as an adult, I'm recreating that scenario.
Totally.
Well, and I think it feels scary because most of us feel like failures with money. Like that's just true. And so showing a part of our failure to people and inviting them in feels extra vulnerable.
So vulnerable.
But it's the way that you become powerful.
Yeah.
You become powerful by facing the thing that you feel like has defeated you.
Yep.
And bringing in people to help you defeat it.
Yep. And it's also, you know, you can sit with, someone can give you advice and it can be like completely the right advice.
Yeah.
But if we have shame, we can't take that advice and put it somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we might go through all the financial courses and learn all about this, that, and the next thing. But if we still have that shame that I'm broken, I'm doing it wrong, I'm just going to take that advice and carry on doing what I've been doing before anyway.
Totally.
Yeah. When you started engaging that course, I imagine there was a ton of people that all had universally the same mindset. Yeah. What's one thing that you took away that universally that they were experiencing?
I think it was a real shame breaker for me to just realize that everyone is deep down probably feeling a very similar thing. I feel out of control. I feel like I'm failing. I feel like this is something that's really important to me, but I can't quite figure it out. People from all different ages, all different backgrounds, realizing it felt very common humanity to me. It felt very humanizing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is actually something that we all
it's a
struggle
human
with.
problem. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not just a Ruth problem.
And I think that's, let me add this real quick. Something that we do far too little of is humanizing ourselves in our issues, whether it's financial, it's sexual, it's, career, whatever it is.
Yep.
It's always like, I'm the odd person out. We don't allow ourselves to be like, nah, this is probably a human problem.
Yep.
Other people may be capable in this area, but they may have the same emotional issue that I have. It just manifests in different ways where they feel small or incapable or whatever it is that they're having happen.
Totally.
What are a few of the light bulbs that you had beyond shame?
So I would say, leading on from that, like you're saying, I think it opens the door to compassion, doesn't it? I was able to have a lot more compassion for myself, for my beliefs and my experiences,
Big part of it.
which ultimately lets me be a lot more curious with myself as to why and how things are kind of put together. A massive revelation that I had was that I am actually in a relationship with money. And currently the way that my relationship with money is set up is very avoidant. So I ignore money.
And it ignores you.
And it ignores me. But then I'm really hoping that it's going to provide me with this sense of feeling safe, this sense of feeling enough, this sense of feeling okay. But I'm not actually putting any time or any effort or any energy into nurturing this relationship whatsoever. So if I had a friendship with you guys and I put no time, no energy, no effort into this relationship, and then I'm like, hey, how come I don't feel like
taken care of
taken
and best
care
friends
of
and comfortable
like,
and familiar.
I don't know anything about you at all.
Totally.
Yeah.
Because relationships take nurture and they take effort and they take investment. And I realized I'd set my relationship up with money to where I just avoided it and then hoped, like crossed my fingers and hoped that it would take care of me somewhere down the line. It'll work out fine. It'll work out fine.
People have that in so many pain point areas. I've noticed, like, again, that it's that avoidance thing, but it's like when there's a pain point, like, let's just hope this works out. And it just is not the case.
Well, it becomes a very lottery mentality,
Absolutely.
right? Where people are like, I'm going to avoid money, but just buy these lottery tickets and hope that I win.
Totally.
Or I'm going to avoid money, but I'm going to put all my stock in this one thing happening. And if this happens, then I'm going to be safe.
I'm going to avoid the career stuff. And then I'm just going to hope and imagine that somehow
somebody's going to come to me and just give me
an opportunity somewhere into some arena that I've longed to be in.
Yeah. And I love trust and faith and just taking the step right in front of you.
Yeah.
That is the only way I've ever gotten anywhere in life. So I'm not saying you need to know where you're going and all of the pieces, but there's a difference between I'm living in a fantasy world while doing nothing to engage.
Totally.
And
or I'm connected.
And being intentional.
Yeah. Because what we're actually doing in that moment is I'm using the anesthetic of the fantasy to deal with the difficult pain and the difficult out of control feeling.
And kick the emotions down the road.
Yeah, kick the emotions down the road, but they come with me.
Yep.
So realizing, oh wow, I have this massively avoidant relationship with money. A really practical way that turned out was I was having a conversation with a coach and she was like, okay, so walk me through how you budget. And I was like, well, I don't budget. She's like, okay. I was like, I just have a mentality that like, if I go into a store, I'm going to buy the least expensive thing or I'm just going to buy less.
Yeah.
Like that's how
just
I manage my money.
Cheap as possible. Spend as least money as possible.
Yep. That in my head is like my money management process.
Yeah.
And kind of in the back and forth in this conversation, I realized, oh, wow, there's something about budgeting that feels like worrying to me. So when I budget, I worry.
Oh.
So I'm wanting to avoid the feelings of my childhood, which was constant worry and constant anxiety about money. So I'm going to avoid budgeting as a way to not have to feel what I don't want to feel. But actually, I'm probably feeling more anxiety and more worry because I'm out of control in my relationship with money because I don't have a budget and I don't know what my bank balance is doing on a daily, weekly kind of basis. Wow. And sort of processing that through and realizing, okay, well then I'm not taking care of my relationship with money. I'm avoiding it. So how can I expect money to show up for me in a way that feels powerful and safe if I'm not even nurturing that relationship at all?
Yeah.
And so starting to go on the process of like, okay, I'm going to set a budget. and I'm going to like actually budget out. This is what I'm going to spend on food. This is what I'm going to spend on the car. And this is what I'm going to spend on rent. And then having like a weekly date. I set like a weekly date with myself, usually on a Sunday. And I'll sit down and I will go through all of my accounts and see, like, did I hit my targets for this week? If not, what do I need to spend a little bit less of? What do I need to spend what do I have room to spend a little bit more on?
Yeah.
And I started to realize, like, because the avoidance is like, I don't want to sit down and have the date because I don't want to feel the feelings of lack. I don't want to feel the feelings of worry. I don't want to feel the feelings of anxiety. But actually, once you get over that initial hurdle of that emotion and you sit down, you're like, okay, I can do this. This is fine. And you start to get that sensation of like, I'm a little bit more in control of my finance. Like, I know what I'm spending and I know where it's going. And I started to notice that I'd be like out in grocery stores and I'd feel so much more free
to buy what you wanted
to buy what I wanted.
Especially because you go, I know that I have it and I know that it's within my budget even. So I'm not freaking out being like, is this the thing that's going to break me?
Right.
This extra 30 cents on this organic cucumber that I want to buy. Yeah, whatever it happens to be, right? Like all those anxiety points start getting eliminated.
Yeah. And it's like the avoidance mentality, right? It's like, I'm going to avoid the emotion over here. Yep. But then I actually end up feeling lots of little spikes of it throughout the day, every single day.
That's what I was going to say. There's like a vague thought of anxiety when you're in avoidance. Like avoidance actually ties you to the thing that you were avoiding. And so you literally are connected to it in a deep way. Yep. Instead of, if you turn and face it, you can let go of the emotion and then you can actually find what you need.
Yep. Absolutely.
And that's huge. I love that.
Massive. And, and I started to feel the fruit of that on a day-to-day basis, like going to the grocery store. Another thing that I did, like I shared in the other episode, I would have this constant like doomsday thinking, like this just giant bill's going to come around the corner. And I started noticing again, okay, I'm avoiding actually the reality that could happen. Like that could happen. The car could break down and you could have to pay for something for it. So instead of avoiding that might happen, that truth, I started putting things in place and budgeting for the fact that could happen.
So there's a doomsday fund all of a sudden.
Yeah,
like,
kind
hey,
of
there's my doomsday fund.
I called it like a rainy day fund.
Yeah.
I didn't call it a doomsday fund. But I was like, I'm going to take a little bit of money aside each week, each month. It doesn't have to be a ton, and put it over here so that I get to emotionally, internally feel prepared for if something comes around the corner.
I love that.
Because the thing is, like, I'm living my life trying to avoid things coming around the corner when you can't control that. Yeah. But what I can control is that I can tolerate the feelings of when something comes around the corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm trying to set up my relationship with money in an attentive way rather than an avoidant way that allows me to tolerate those feelings.
Well, and a lot of people feel out of control. And what you're doing is there's healthy amounts of control.
Right.
Where you're being productive with it, where you're using, I can actually be powerful.
Right.
And find a way. Now, if you don't deal with your trauma, you can swing into the other extent where you're hyper fixated on control. And that is not being free from trauma either. But you're looking at, where am I coming from on the spectrum? Yep. So if you're like Ruth and you're coming from avoidance, learning to see there are ways I can be powerful and take steps is exactly what you need. Now, if you have learned to be micromanaging yourself and overly OCD about all of the moments with money, then learning how to let go and release that a little bit would be the healing journey for those people.
Yeah. I think it's good that you point that out, because it's easy to be like, oh, I don't fit in that camp. I already have like super amounts of control. Well, you need to figure out what fits your story. Yeah. Like, what does my story need? I actually need to break control.
Yeah. Like for you, you were very much had control in finances. And so like a couple things that you did.
Yeah.
You want to share?
Yeah. I want to share about that.
You don't want me to tell your stories? Weird.
No, I'm good. I can do that. Let's see. Well, even when we got married, So I had a savings account. I was very,
You had a doomsday account.
yeah, I had a doomsday account. And even I got to a point where I was working a job getting paid like $1,000 a month, I think is what I was getting paid.
In LA.
In LA. My housing was provided for. So I wasn't having to pay for that. But I was getting $1,000 a month. And at one point I felt like I was supposed to give away 3 months of that.
Oh, wow.
And I did. And some really cool things happened. But when I got married, you know, I still had about, by the time we're done with some of our financial gifts that we got from our wedding, there was like a $20,000 chunk that was sitting there that I had. And
Can we just say, like, I was like so freaked out when I married Justin.
I'd also paid off some of your debt, I think.
Yeah, that
Did
he
you?
had he had that much saved at that young of an age, making $1,000 a month. I was like, I don't even know how that math works. I literally don't understand it. It must be some kind of like fishes and loaves or multiplying kind of thing. Like
He's
I
miraculous.
was just like, well,
It's
how
called
is this?
80-hour work weeks on a contracting site.
Yeah, yeah. You worked
Construction
hard for
site,
your
yeah.
money. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like I had all that in my back pocket, and part of my process was having to actually not work. It was a year of not working. It was a year of spending. And like, I tell this story. It's such a funny nerd thing. It goes back to my action figure collection. And so when Abby and I were traveling, and with no end in sight, when our travels were going to stop in that first year, because I didn't know if we're going to go back to work in 3 weeks, 3 months,
A year?
3 years, like what was actually going on. But I started like recollecting action figures. And all of a sudden, as we're traveling, I'm seeing all these action figures that I want and that I can get multiples of and all this type of stuff. And I feel like there's this thing inside of me that says, buy as much as you want. But every time I'm buying like an action figure that's like $5.50, I'm like, that's a $5 footlong. That was going to feed me for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, like, but what I realize is like, for me to be free from this financial worry that I have to let go of my version of control and my version of power that I have on it. Because my version of power is a reaction to the underlying emotional current that's there. So I had to face my greatest fear, which was emptying out entirely every bit of our savings over that year. There was nothing left at the end of it, and starting from ground zero. And then from ground zero, it was those next phases of looking at finances, not from a way of like, oh, I just have to work harder and put more in there. It's, I have to look at what's really going on under the surface for me to resolve this. But letting go of that control was foundational.
Yeah, there was a lot of fear in there with control. And that's why I'm saying it can go on both sides, which was, and I think you actually grew your capacity for trust and for faith and for hope
Absolutely
in finances by doing that.
And it's funny because my budget went through the roof. I wasn't just taking care of me. I was now taking care of you, quotation marks. I paid off your debt. Then I quit working, and every day was spending money, from gas to staying at other places. It was just spend.
And both of us had to manage that journey of watching it is out of control. And that's why I say, like, there's something nice to working. Like, I grew up in a culture of religion where there's a lot of people who don't work, and they say that that's because they shouldn't. And there's something really nice about working. It feels very empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So true.
That's all I had to say.
True.
Yeah. So anyways, that shattered a lot for me.
Yeah. It was a really good process for you. I'd say for me, we'll hop back to more things. For me, one of the things that has helped me the most with money is understanding that your mindset really dictates your choices and your behavior.
Yeah.
And so at a young age, like before I met Justin, I found this woman who was wealthy and had a wealthy mindset, and she was successful in business. And I was like, I need to learn how to think like she thinks. I need to figure out what she believes about money. And I need to get my beliefs over to that side. Like, that's what I thought. And so I bought, and this is, for me, I am a firm believer in like investing into areas you want to be successful, investing time, investing resources, investing energy, like actually work in the areas that you want to see fruit. So when I was like very young, I had to have been like 20-ish. I went to one of her conferences, I had at that point very little money and she had $100 CD set.
Wow.
And it was for 10 CDs. And I was like, I'm going to do this. Like $100 was probably like a month budget for me at that point with how I lived. I lived very cheaply. And so, but I was like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to invest. And there's something to me about investing purposefully is a thing against fear. It's saying, no, I'm putting faith that I can grow in this. I'm putting faith that this is an area that I can conquer in. I'm putting faith that I am powerful to grow in this, that I like, sometimes I say, put your money where your mouth is. Like, if you want to see growth in your life, do something, again, responsible, but do something intentional to help you. And so I bought this series. Yeah. I probably listened to that series like 500 times. Like, I listened to it over and over and over again. And I still remember things that she said and things that she did. And she was like the first. And then we've like throughout the years, I'd keep finding people that had mindsets that I was like, yes, I want to believe like this. So I would listen to them. I'd find out as much as I could about how they thought, how they made decisions, what their beliefs were, so that I do have this belief that if I can hear something enough, like, I'm not necessarily a quick learner, but if I can hear something enough and wrestle through my feelings, because I will feel my actual resistance. Like, when I'm listening to somebody teach on finances, I will feel all of my like, no, that's not true. And so like, I'll actually wrestle through it. I'm not just like trying to like memorize books and material out there. I'm actually trying to wrestle internally until I can get to that belief. And so like, one of the books I recommend to everybody read is You Are a Badass at Making Money. Yeah. Because it is such a good push against the limiting beliefs that you have. Remind yourself to not get stuck in the limiting beliefs that you have. And so for me, a huge part of transforming my money beliefs has been hearing beliefs that were different than I had and engaging them. I remember, for me, I grew up in a culture that glorified poverty. The church system culture, the religious institution that I grew up in, glorified being poor, glorified struggling.
I had to break a lot of that too.
And so I actually had to go through the Bible and see all of the people in the Bible that were financially wealthy, and that was seen as a good thing. Yeah. Now, there's people who come from prosperity messages where all they think is like, if you're not rich, then God doesn't like you. And then you'd have to go through the Bible and look for all the people that God loved who were in poverty. Like, but the goal is that you actually find where you're coming from on the spectrum. And because the truth is that God's nature is that he loves and provides for everyone. It looks different for different people. Like, and we get to choose into how much we want to engage that journey.
Yeah, and participate with it.
Participate. So it's not like, oh, some people are just meant to be poor and some people are just meant to be rich. It's like, we need to know that there's a God who's with us in every state and who's for us in every state.
So good.
And also, we need to know that we have power to co-create our lives and create a lifestyle that we want and create a pathway that we want.
It's good.
So good. I love that you bring that up. Like, was a big part of even making the decision to do the course. I remember having this thought like, wow, I've overcome so much emotionally, but how much have I sown into doing that? Like, I've paid for counseling weekly for years. I've like, part of coming to the States was part of that journey for me. Like, I've actually invested finances in this, in an act of faith that some breakthrough, some change, something like God's going to show up for me inside of this space. And I asked myself the question, where have I ever done that in my relationship with money? Never, not once. Yep. I have not spent a single penny on investing in my relationship with money. And I started feeling almost kind of convicted, like,
Yeah.
well, what would happen actually if I invested a chunk of money? And it was quite a chunk of money to do this school.
Which I love that you had to, to do this school, you had to face the fear about money by investing money into it without any guarantee of getting anything out of it, and just going like, yeah, but I'm going to.
But the thing is, I knew it wouldn't be a good school if it wasn't charging that much. And I knew, I mean, people can charge crazy rates for things that aren't worth it. So that's not true. But what I am saying is, like, immediately you also invested more.
Yeah.
You got out of that course. You decided to soak it in.
Mm-hmm.
You decided to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
You actually engaged because it cost you something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember one of the healing points with money was when there was a guy who had like a 3-month like course thing that was like $7,000 for like a mastermind, where there was a couple of guys that were involved inside of it. And it wasn't like we had 7,000 to spend, but I committed into that to spend the $7,000. And I remember the moment that I committed, like, I'm in, I'll do this, $7,000. It's 3 months. Don't even know. It's like, it's not even a bunch of meetings. Like, logically, from my perspective, finances, I'm like, am I even getting out with, like, is that worth $7,000? But there was something, the minute I made that shift internally, I broke a big sense of fear, and I increased my money map, where I was like, oh no, like $7,000 doesn't have to be a lot. I'm not minimizing $7,000, but I'm like, oh, but what if there's more than enough to create provision for the $7,000, and we continue to get taken care of inside of stuff.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so I love that you said yes to, like, I'm going to do that.
And there's even an energetic thing to that, isn't there?
Yes.
Like, because you're saying, okay, if I can outlay this money right now, I'm sort of agreeing with this energy. Maybe there's another word for it, like the energy of the emotion, that essentially money will keep coming to me.
Yes.
Like, this isn't a finite resource, that this is all that I have and I have to guard it with everything that I've got. Like, actually money's going to come easily to me. The more I invest in money, the more money is going to come back to me.
Yeah. Well, I've really I've paid attention, because I really do believe there's something, for me, my personal belief around money is just my personal belief around everything, which is faith works. Whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, like, faith actually empowers you. There are those entrepreneurs that go bankrupt like 13 times, but are like millionaires, multimillionaires. Like, they just believe no matter what happens, I'm just going to keep making money. No matter what happens, I'm going to find my way through. Like, your beliefs guide you and land you there. So I don't want fear and control governing, because I feel like it's almost like a lid that I feel like blocks me. If I want money to be like a river that flows in through my life, and there's always money flowing in, and then there's always money flowing out. Like, I want it to be fluid, and I want there to be a belief that in every season there's more that comes. Yeah. I will always have resource. Now, that's not always easy. Like, I have to practically wrestle that out. But when I start to feel that locked up in fear, oh no, I'm going to lose everything. Oh no, I'm alone. Oh no, I can't see what to do. I often try to give money away. And one thing, when me and Justin did a journey on self-help, every self-help book we saw said gratitude and generosity were two of the most important parts. Every single one. You can just, for sure, if there's a self-help book, it has gratitude and generosity, because there's something about the energy of generosity is partnering with the idea, I am going to have more.
Yeah.
There's more coming to me. There is an infinite amount of resources around me. I have access to things beyond what I'm aware of. I am not alone. I don't have to hold on to this little bit. I can't. And so for me, often I will choose, that's what we did when we couldn't find a house to buy. I was like, we're going to give away part of our down payment that we've saved up for, which makes no sense. But I was like, I'm feeling this feeling of like,
and it felt
fear.
It felt so freeing to do that.
Yeah.
I came so alive and being like, yep, let's give this away.
Yep.
Let's let go of even the idea of like, oh no, if I let go of that, then I'm going to lose.
Then I'll never get a
house.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, it's going to come through. We're going to be fine. Let's say yes to this.
Yeah.
It's just that we have expectations on how things need to look, the timetables and stuff like that. And part of the journey of actually getting to that level of freedom is going, I'm letting go of my expectations of the how, the when, the where, all of that, and just being able to be like, yeah, it's going to find its way. I'm going to be an active participant. I'm going to flow in the stream of generosity and gratitude on this. Yep. And we'll watch beauty unfold inside of it. And there's been some of the most miraculous, beautiful stories that have hit our lives because of that approach.
So I've worked on expand my worldview of money and then do the exact thing in front of me really, really well.
Yeah.
Like those are the two keys that I would say financial breakthrough in my life, that I continually expand my beliefs of what's possible, of having faith that I'm going to be provided for, that things are going to be okay. And then while doing that, just what is the next step in front of me without the limiting beliefs of like, there's only one way I'm going to get what I need. There's only one way I'm going to get to my destiny. I have to have this much money before this and this and this. It's literally just like, what is in front of me and how do I kick ass at it?
Right.
And I think a lot of people are waiting till they feel that magic career moment, or they feel like they're really in the thing that they love and they feel to be great. And I'm like, if you are great, there will always be promotion that shows up at your door. There will always be a way to work your way. And I have worked my way up from the bottom in every business I have been to the top, because I'm like, I'm going to be a hard freaking worker. Like I'm going to find a way to do the best that I can. And I'm going to partner that with beliefs that say that I can be whoever I want to be.
I want to add this, because when you're talking about being excellent with the thing that's right in front of you, what excellent looked like for you and I, like our first year of marriage, the only thing I had in front of me was to figure out how to be excellent at relationship with you. And though we were failing miserably in many aspects together, there was, for me, I'm fully embracing that moment and saying, I just need to figure out how to do this really well. This is what this season is right now. And so that created momentum. It wasn't at a very specific career. In fact, it evolved into one though. Yeah. Right? Like,
Looking back,
it was like, we were investing in understanding ourselves and each other. And that ended up developing in this entire business that we do now. But it was trusting that like, this is what's in front of me. I don't know how it's actually going to benefit my life long-term, but I'm going to give myself fully away to it and be as excellent as I can each day.
Yeah.
So good.
Okay. Do you have other things? We've jumped around to other keys that
I love it. I think probably the other thing would be, it's kind of like we're talking about this energy agreement, right? Is essentially kind of the energy of the emotions that we're feeling around money.
Yeah.
And if we think about the fact that our belief systems our belief systems are connected to our emotions, which is connected to how we kind of store that in our bodies, those things we feel. So something that I would do is kind of go through and figure out what some of my money beliefs were, and then I would almost kind of body map them.
Oh, I love this.
Like when I think about that belief of I'm alone, I'm little, I can't, like I'm incapable, I need someone bigger than me. What's the emotion? What's the feeling that I'm trying to avoid behind that belief? Or I get kind of present with myself. It's fear. It's that pit of fear of like, I'm not going to be taken care of. I'm not going to get my needs met. I'm going to be left on my own. Okay, then where do I physically feel that in my body? Oh, I feel that like right in the pit of my stomach, like right here in my gut. Yeah. And then I would work on becoming aware when I was feeling that feeling around money. So
you'd notice the pit in your stomach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, oh, I'm going to check my bank account. What am I feeling? I feel that pit in my stomach. Okay, then I'm probably having the feelings, the emotions of fear, the emotions of being alone. I'm probably connecting to that belief system of I have to do this on my own. Okay,
I love this.
So then what's a piece of truth? What's a piece of safety? What's a piece of the present moment that I can actually connect to, rather than, because in that moment, like we talked about, almost like a flashback, I'm more connected to the little girl back here who's growing up in a house with a mum who feels not powerful and is out of control, and she feels really scared. But the reality is I'm in my 30s, I have a job, I have a house, I can pay for things. Like, how can I connect to the safety of myself in this moment?
Right.
And that was a lot of, I would do things kind of like almost like grounding things. So I'd sort of sit there in my apartment and I'd like look around and I'd be like, oh no, this is my apartment. Like this is my my couch that I bought, like this is the computer where I do my work, like where I own my own business. And I would kind of remind myself, sort of ground myself in moments of safety. I would also go back and like remember moments where things have worked out for me financially. So where God had come through with something miraculous. Like it's kind of miraculous that I lived in the States for 4 years without a job.
For 4 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of wild.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Or I would go back and I'd kind of like look through my story and frame it instead of a story. I do want to say
you did go home and work in the summers.
Yes.
Just for people listening, it wasn't like this magic carpet ride, because I think that's what we all think will happen. Rough. Yeah. You didn't spend much. Yeah. And you also worked really hard. Yeah. For a few months.
I worked really hard for 3 months and then spent as little as I could for 9 months.
Yes.
That's how I did it, basically. Kind of re-go through my story and look at it through a lens of, wow, I've actually been able to have so many enriching experiences. Like my life hasn't been a life of poverty. Yeah. My life hasn't been a life that's limited. My life has been really expansive and there've been so many beautiful things in it.
Yes.
So I'm trying to connect in that present emotion, I'm trying to, instead of what I would usually do, which is abandon myself,
jump out of your body. You're like, this does not feel good in my body. I don't like this.
Try and control something on the outside. I'm actually going to get really present with myself and what I'm needing in that moment, which is to not feel alone in that emotion.
It's good.
Ruth, that's so good. I love that.
It's been a good episode. We're getting towards the end of this. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts that I was thinking.
You were thinking those thoughts, huh?
Would you like to share them?
They all just
disappeared.
They all just vanished. Disappeared right then. I'm like, where did they all go? I had them. Yeah, I think that one of the things that has helped my money map the most is to let go of the expectations of when I should know what, and how much I should know by that time. And then the idea of like just not giving up. So I think people want to be out of their pain so much that they want to do one course and have it fix all of their problems about money. They want to have one book they read and have it solve everything. And then if it doesn't solve everything, they actually get kind of disappointed. Yeah. And then sometimes they give up on the journey. And I think the thing that has helped me see breakthrough in finances the most has been that I just don't quit. I don't quit learning. I don't quit listening to healthy beliefs. Like, I think it is not my second nature. It's not my first nature to think positively about everything. I have to fight to believe and think and contemplate positive beliefs about things. And so I gave up the idea that I should know it all by now, that I should have it all sorted out by now, that like, oh, but I've been working on this for this long. I've given up all of that. I'm like, I've been working on money beliefs for this long and I've seen this much breakthrough. And the important thing is to look for the gratitude of what I have seen and not be frustrated that there's still things I hit my head on, not be frustrated that it still comes up. I've fully embraced the humanity of this. That's good. And I fully embrace that there are going to be seasons where the limiting beliefs from my childhood feel way more real. And there's going to be seasons where they feel way quieter.
Totally.
Like there's seasons of sowing and there's seasons of reaping. And that is a normal thing. And in seasons of reaping, I don't feel a lot of my fears about finances. Right. And then in the seasons of sowing, I feel more fear about my finances. And so I always think like wherever I'm at on the journey, it is giving me more space to expand and to grow. And I just think, oh, this gives me more room to take over more territory. Not I'm failing or see, I still haven't gotten it yet. Or there's no point. And I'm like, yes, we're going to have to be spending money for the rest of our lives. So we might as well embrace that this is going to be a journey that takes time and do bite-sized pieces. Yeah. I'm listening to this conversation. I'm like, there's still a lot that I need to work through. There's still so many places, Justin will say this, that I avoid things in finances. There's still so many areas that I have limiting beliefs that show up. And so I am gracious to myself. I'm like, part of it is understanding implicit memory, which is my body had some really strong experiences as a kid around finances. My parents fought about money probably more than anything. Me and money. Those were the two things that they fought about. So my greatest sense of unsafety was that I am the worst and that money is going to destroy me. Like my biggest body memories are terror around money or my own issues. And so I have a lot of compassion. Of course, that's really scary to face. Of course, that takes a lot of energy. And logically, do I feel like that little kid all the time? No. But emotionally, my body memories come back up and they show up. And so there's just this, if you guys will give yourself compassion so you don't give up. So you don't stop learning, so you don't stop growing, so you don't stop trying new things. Like if the way you're budgeting isn't working, try a different form of budgeting. There's like 20 different budgeting apps. One of them will probably work the way that your brain works. If there's something that's, like I love Atomic Habits. It's a great book that you can read where you look for what is a little way that I can start to change my habits. Not I have to change everything right now or I'm a failure, but like what is something I do have power over that I can do. Now, I will say some of the most financially successful, there's this guy that I know who was a part of a what is it, like Inc. 500, and then there's Inc. 5, or what are they called when they're like business?
Fortune 500 business.
It was a Fortune 5 business. So like
Fortune 500.
No, it was like a top above 500.
The top.
It was like it was like one of the top percentage of businesses in the world. They sold it, made a lot of money. And one of the things that he said that he does is they have a weekly financial meeting, him and his wife, because he's like, why would I not treat my life like a business? In business, you are always paying attention to where your numbers are at and what you need to do so you can pivot. And I was like, oh, that's actually a great idea. Now, we haven't implemented it yet because I haven't even told you that. But
surprise.
But the idea is there's always a little bit new hack or a little bit new something that you can try. Don't believe the lie that you've tried it all. Know that you have power to change your financial future. It doesn't matter what your parents have come through. We are living a completely different life than my parents lived.
Totally.
I have broken through so many of the ceilings. I never thought I would have any of the financial stability that I have in my life. It feels beautiful and miraculous. And it also feels like we did a lot of hard work to get here.
Totally.
Truth. Well,
do you have anything else?
Nope.
Did I talk too long?
You did.
I'm sorry. I just feel passionate.
Passionate. But I will say just one last thing. Like, I like what you're saying, that it's not about getting to a space where I don't ever feel those feelings again.
Yeah.
It's just I get to feel more and more powerful around those feelings.
Yes.
I think
that's the journey.
Yeah. I think that if we had a mindset of we live forever, we wouldn't have so much anxiety about having to get it so quickly.
Yeah.
So there's this idea that we have a finite amount of time. And yes, in this earth space, there's a finite amount of it, but there's an infinite amount of time on our expression of our being. Like there's an eternal expression of us. And like, this is one space where we get to learn and grow in something. And it's okay if it looks a certain way. It doesn't look ideally the way that we've been told our life is supposed to unfold. But there's so much, we're running against a clock so oftentimes internally. And so what that does is it creates a lot of anxiety and it shuts us down and goes, oh, I don't know that yet. I should know that by now. I'm too far behind. And all this, instead of being like, it doesn't matter if it takes me the next, like, if I learn this lesson by the time I'm 80, cool.
So good.
I'm just going to keep chipping away at this. I'm going to lower the stakes. It had value and it was purposeful, even if it takes me till I'm 80 to learn it, because there's an infinite life that I'm actually going to go on with. And certain aspects of what I gain out of that 80 years of chipping away aren't wasted. They're going to continue to move on with me. I think that is also a major helpful thing for me when I look through an eternal perspective, is I'm like, even if I don't get everything right, I'm just going to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not wasted. So
The last thing I'd say is just do a bite-sized piece.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix everything at once because you'll avoid it. The whole point
Yeah.
of this is
Totally.
don't avoid it.
keep chipping away.
Do one bite-sized
Yeah.
step at a time.
Yeah. Well, with that said, hey, we've been telling you about our life consulting masterclass. There's still time to sign up for that. You can go apply at justinandabby.com. And it's starting in January. We're going to have a full year of helping people tackle their heart issues and their mindsets and get on a good track.
And here is a little story from someone who did it.
I just am really proud with how, through my transformation, I've been able to gently introduce the things to my family and how it's just transformed interactions in my family. So it's just been really cool to see how they've responded because they had no clue what I was getting into or what I was doing. And it's been, and I know like when I was reading CPTSD, how discouraged I was because my kids are 21, 18, and 14. And so we just dropped off my first son at college this weekend. And I'm like, my time with them is so short. And how much like vulnerability broke open and how much like they all became comfortable with emotions. Like watching my boys say goodbye to each other, every single one of them was weeping, and just it was, and even my husband, how he's I've been teaching about triggers, and he is a director of sales in his company, which is, he figured, like, he came under this when I was teaching him about it. He's like, I'm pretty sure I got to where I was in my fight response.
Yeah.
And I really want to do this job regulated. And so he's like really fighting for regulation. Like he doesn't even have all the tools to know how to do it. So I'm just like slowly, trying to teach him those things. And, I taught him the first like little bit about safety and what we were doing with safety. And, it's just really, it's really unbelievable how, I came from this thought like, oh, it's just too late for me. I'm not going to be able to affect my kids. And now just watching it affect my husband, Eric, and then how it's just trickling down with interactions between them. And it's been a really unbelievable transformation.
Oh,
So,
wow. I think there's nothing that gets me more. I mean, every single person in here is a generational changer.
Yeah.
Anyone who's doing this course made the decision that they want to be the generation that changes things for the next generation.
Yeah.
And I just think that is so freaking powerful. And I feel so proud of you. And just like having consulted so many people for so long, there is never an age that transforming as a parent doesn't massively impact your kids.
Yeah.
Like 18-year-olds need their healthiest mom as much as 12-year-olds, as much as 3-year-olds. Like there's never an age that doesn't massively impact. Like I can tell you how many people in college were dying to have a parent that wanted to grow, that cared, that was on a journey. Like you're doing this stuff, and I feel proud.
And I feel proud because it sounds like you're not forcing it on your family, but it sounds like you're creating invitations, because I can feel the tenderness of like, oh, there's an invitation in this household. And I love that. I love that you didn't swing to control, but like conversations and just slowly introducing stuff. So that's really beautiful. And I love the tenderness of your heart.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.